What would you say is the biggest challenge in your work?
Biggest challenge in my work. Yeah, that's easy. All right, that's my pet peeve. So my biggest challenge is helping African Americans to understand the need for life insurance. All right. So I found that a challenge. I run into attitudes such as I talk to a lot of guys, men, and here's the attitude I get. I'm not going to leave all that money to my wife so she can marry another guy. All right, so I would get that all the time. So after a while, you start thinking through this stuff. Okay, so how am I going to overcome that objection? And so I would explain. I said, well, how would I think about life insurance? So I started sharing that with people. I said, listen, here's the way I look at it. All right, I want to leave my wife in a position that she doesn't have to marry the first joker that comes along that can help her pay the bills. All right, and I don't want just anybody raising my children. All
Wow.
right. So I'm going to put her in a position where she can take her time. And then I tell stories because I've literally, one of my first customers ever, this is crazy. I went to the house in Sumter. The wife invited us over. We went that night. My manager and I was a brand new agent, rang the doorbell, and we got cursed out by the husband. So I left with my tail between my legs and went back to the office and said, well, maybe perhaps the wife didn't explain it to this guy. I'll call back. But I lost my courage because he shook me so badly. It's the first time experience. I said, I kept saying, I'm going to call, but I never called. This is a true story. 2 weeks later, I pick up the newspaper. I read the newspaper. This guy had a massive heart attack and he died. And left his wife and children with a beautiful home and no means to take care of it. That stuck with me. That made me realize, helped me to understand what you sell is valuable. What you're offering people is valuable. Life insurance allows people to maintain their dignity, to not depend on the government and social organizations. And it's the upholding, even to me, of biblical principles. All right, so when I married my wife, I made a commitment to her. They say to death do you part. I say even beyond that, until both of us die. I'm going to take care of her. If I'm not here, she's going to be taken care of, and I want to provide for my children as well. And if as a man, in explaining this is what I've tried to explain to so many men, especially African American men. It is my responsibility. If I provided a certain level of lifestyle for my family, it would be negligent of me to die and leave them in a situation where they cannot maintain that lifestyle. All right. So I looked at it and I did a presentation. I put together a presentation called African Americans and Life Insurance. And I prayed about it. I said, Lord, I got a lot of presentations from the company I can put together, but you're a creative God. And you gave that same creativity to me, helped me to put together and organize a presentation that will touch the African American community. And within that presentation, I did some study, and the research told me at the time, over 78% of African Americans have zero life insurance. I was astonished. I said, how could that possibly be in this day and age? And so I began to study the history of us and life insurance. And then I understood why we're where we're at. It's the mentality that we have been given over time. So my job has been my toughest job is to re-educate our people on life insurance. The need, the value, and what it can do for you.
Very important work. Very, very important work. And I am the son of insurance professionals and advisors, as you have corrected me on that.
Absolutely.
And the reality is that it is something that we kind of put to the side, and we don't think about until sadly it's too late and somebody's putting up a GoFundMe or what have you. And the reality is, through some very intentional planning, we can be more proactive. And there's, always historical reasons, always long-standing issues, but at the same time, how do we help the community move forward? And so,
how do we break that generational curse?
Absolutely. Welcome to the Imagine Exposure Vodcast. We are the vodcast where our goal is to try to help our young people reverse engineer their career goals and be able to look at 101 different professions and skills that we have some dynamic professionals and those who are really great at their craft. And today's no exception. Today we have a great insurance sales person who's been doing it for many years and doing it at a very high level. This gentleman is a friend of my family, a friend of my father and my mother. Has helped us a lot in our transition or the transition of their business. And nothing but high words for him. This is Mr. Ernest Session. Mr. Session has done insurance in the state of South Carolina, and I'm sure he'll get into the nuance in different places where he's done and get into his background. But has done a wonderful job, not only in terms of his vocation, but also has a incredible reputation for character, high character. And so without further ado, I want to introduce Mr. Ernest Session. How you doing, Mr. Session?
Hey, good morning, Zach. Doing well. First of all, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And thank you for all the compliments. Not quite sure if I deserve all of that, but I do appreciate it. Appreciate it. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So our first question out the gate, we ask every guest. Sometimes we see people, they're often defined by others and things like that. But our first question is, who are you and how do you define yourself?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And what I tell people all the time, first of all, you kind of described what I do. Okay, so what I do is not necessarily who I am. So I tell people all the time, first and foremost, I'm a child of God. I am someone who is just kingdom minded. I'm trying to live my life for the Lord in every realm of my life, whether it be business, whether it be religion, whether it be family, whatever it is, I'm trying to glorify God in everything that I do.
Awesome. Our next question is, what is your story?
What is my story as it pertains to business?
It can be connected to business. It can be talked about work, vocation. But one of the things I try to encourage with our guests is, you have free reign. Just share how you feel it. Yeah.
Yeah, good. So who am I? Well, first of all, my story. What's my story? Well, born in Brooklyn, New York. Most people don't know that about me. I've been in South Carolina, so they think I'm a South Carolina native. But I actually was born in Brooklyn, New York, lived there for my first 11 years of life. A large amount of my family's there. That's where my foundation was built. I'm a young man who lost a mother at the age of 3. Went through some grief over that, and that's something that probably has affected the way I live my life throughout. Graduate of Sumter High School, Sumter, South Carolina. Proud graduate there. Graduate of Coker College in Hartsville, South Carolina. But I didn't start at Coker College. I started at St. Augustine in Raleigh, North Carolina. Most people don't know that either. But after about a semester, I decided, you know what, this is not going to work for me. Came back home to Sumter, went to USC Sumter for a semester. That didn't work too well because my parents had no transportation for me. So I walked about, this sounds like one of those old stories that old people tell. I used to laugh at those stories, but now I'm that person. So I used to walk about 2 miles from my home to USC Sumter every day. And somehow I don't think my parents really heard about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. They didn't realize that if you walk 2 miles to school in the rain, you're not going to feel like going to school when you actually get there. So I basically wasted a semester at USC Sumter. Had to really figure out what I was going to do. My dad challenged me. He said, son, you got to figure out what you're going to do with your life. And he said, either you need to go to work, get in the military, or go back to school. And I remembered a coach who had recruited me when I was in high school at Coker College. I gave him a call. I said, hey, coach, I said, you still interested? He said, come on up. So I went up, gave it a shot. And as they say, the rest is history. That's where I graduated. And I started out, my major in college was sociology. Which is basically the study of people and human behavior. And I spent the first part of my career in social services. I did adoptions, I did welfare, I did foster care, really enjoyed what I was doing, but I couldn't really make a significant living to take care of my family. And I began to search around, but in the meantime, I've been trying to help someone else, my sister, who who I didn't think she was doing what she needed to do. She was a graduate of Morris College with a degree in accounting with honors. I didn't feel like she was doing what she needed to do. So my wife and I were looking for jobs to help my sister. And I saw this advertisement. I said, hey, that sounds like a good thing for Ann. And I called her and she had no interest whatsoever. And I said to my wife, I said, you know, it sounds pretty interesting. I think I'm going to explore it myself. And that happened to be an interview with Prudential Insurance Company of America. And that's where I started my insurance career in 1988. Did that for about a year and a half. They promised me the world, told me I was going to have all the money, all the time in the world to spend with my family. I had less money and I had less time. And I was becoming very discouraged. And really about to get out of the business. And once a friend of mine who was played a significant role in my career in insurance, and someone you know, Billy Coker. Mr. Coker actually came to me one day at the YMCA. We used to play basketball together. And he said, hey, man, he said, you know, you need to give Allstate a try. And I said, you know, I'll listen to them. But I'm really at the end of my rope. I'm ready to find something else, to go back to social services. I really enjoyed what I was doing there. But I said, I'll listen. And I did. I listened, got a call from Allstate. Allstate calls me. We interviewed 3 times. Things go really well as far as I'm concerned. And the last thing the guy tells me is, hey, you know what? Doesn't make sense to hire anybody. We don't need to hire anybody. And I was just deflated. Went home, didn't hear another word for 3 months. Call out of nowhere one day. I get a call, and it's a woman on the phone. She says, would you hold for Stan Rogers? I'm like, who is this guy? Then I said, oh, that's the guy from Allstate. So I pick up the phone. He says, hey, man, your financial future is bright. He's still blowing smoke. He's telling me, yeah, great things are coming, et cetera. But I've heard these stories before. And I'm still not quite convinced, but I went along with it. And I went ahead and got my license, got licensed in property and casualty. I was already licensed in life insurance and securities, and went to work for Allstate. And I said, okay, so where do I put my office, and when do I start? They said, well, you got to find your own office. I said, okay, that's interesting. All right, so I found it. I said, okay, good. I found my office. Here's the location. Here's what it costs. They said, okay, well, you got to pay for it. And like, I don't have any money. So my wife and I got out, we prayed about it, put our heads together. She really believed in this. She was behind me on this. And we took our car, which was paid for. And never forgot, 1995 Toyota Corolla. Sold it for $5,000. Invested that $5,000 in the business. And here we are today. So I grew that business from scratch for 11 years. And after 11 years, you know, and we were fairly successful at it. I decided I needed to change, and I went into management. And so for 4 years in Charleston, that's where I worked more closely with your dad. In Charleston, I was at the Charleston Orangeburg market in South Carolina. And at that point, for 4 years, I did that. I managed a $75 million market for Allstate. And we were pretty successful with that. But for personal family reasons, I decided to go back into personal production. My sons were getting older. My wife was at home by herself with teenage sons, and you know how that can be for a mother. And I decided that, I said, I don't believe, just as God never intended for Abraham to sacrifice Isaac, he never intended for me to sacrifice my children on the altar of my job. And so while I had a successful career, things were going really well, we made the move to come back to Sumter. And that same Billy Coker, I wound up purchasing his agency. Interesting, the 6 degrees of separation there, and purchased that agency, and over time merged into another agency, and we've been at it since 2004 in this particular location. And now my son is also in the business, and he's located in Columbia, South Carolina. That's kind of my story in a nutshell.
That's an awesome story. I'm just thinking different dimensions of that story. Everything from talking about being at St. Aug in terms of the school and transitioning. And I always encourage our guests to share the full story, because you never know where someone is on their journey. The part where you talk about you and your wife deciding to sell your car as an investment for the business. And so that's a phenomenal story. Okay. That's as I always like to start that, because even as small as, I mean, I feel like you and my dad had a relationship for a long time. I never knew you were from Brooklyn.
Most people know. Yeah. Don't talk about it. Matter of fact, when I go back to Brooklyn, they tell me I sound Southern, and here, but in South Carolina, they tell me I sound Northern. So I guess I'm just in between.
Okay.
But it's a good mixture. It's a good mixture. Yeah.
Sure. What would you say? Next question. What is the biggest misconception of your job?
I'm sorry. The biggest what?
The biggest misconception of selling insurance. What's the biggest misconception of your job?
You just said it. That I sell insurance. People think that's People think that's all you do. So you're like you're the insurance man. Oh yeah, I know you're the insurance man. And that comes from years of our people, especially African Americans, being subjected to the debit agent who would come by the house and sell the policies and sell you a policy every single year. And he became known as the insurance man. Sometimes you wanted to see the insurance man. Most times you didn't. So people would hide from the insurance man. They would literally cut the lights off, shut down the doors and everything else, and not answer the bell when the insurance man showed up. So that's a misconception. And what I have to help people to understand is I'm an insurance professional. I'm an advisor. All right. My job is to advise you to help people manage their everyday risk. Things like the risk of dying, the risk of something happening tragically to your home, fire or theft or whatever it might be, something happening to your automobile, the things that you put the most money into. I help people to manage those risks on a daily basis, and I build relationships. First and foremost, I think that's the most important thing, because out of building relationships, it enables me the influence to be able to help people, to advise them.
What who are the people, and you talked about a few when you shared your story, but who are the people in your vocational story in which you're most grateful?
All right, so first and foremost, I got to give credit to my wife. All right, so she had faith in me when I didn't have faith. She believed that this was ordained for me to do, and I thought, I don't know. So I would first and foremost say my wife. I mentioned before Billy Coker. Also, I'm going to mention your dad, Alonzo Middleton, Harry Blake, Richard Dixon, and Bill Berry. Some very significant gentlemen in my journey. Bill and I started in sales together, but he was with Allstate prior to me in another capacity. Your dad was with Allstate prior to me. Harry Blake and Richard Dixon were with Allstate prior to me. And these were guys I look up to when I came into the business and kind of learned from them. And they mentored me. And then it's funny because later I became their leader. In a sense, when I was in Charleston, actually Richard, Harry, and your dad were part of my market. But I felt a privilege and honor to lead them, because a lot of things that I had been exposed to, I was able to also expose them to. And even one of the gentlemen I mentioned, his daughter is now second generation in that business. Yeah. So I would say those are significant people. And I also mentioned Jim Usselbeck. Jim and I started together. Jim is a sales leader with Allstate. He's one of the top, he's over the state of North and South Carolina. And he's always been tough, but fair. And we rubbed each other wrong a few times, but along the way, we became very good friends. And he has helped me and helped my career along the way.
So this is a question that I think it helps in terms of young people to reverse engineer their goals, their career goals, this sort of thing. The question is, how did your childhood passions as a kid prepare you for your adult career choice?
That's a good question. And two things. All right. When I first started out, a little bit about my journey too, just to backpedal just a little bit. I was as a first and second grader, they wanted to skip me ahead. As a third grader, they wanted to lead me back.
Interesting. Okay.
Interesting story, right? Well, the reason was I was always that kid that had the ability to do the work, but wasn't always necessarily living up to that ability. I'll tell you why. And I'll tell you what saved me. Why was sports became number one to me, especially basketball, but football too, which I know you're a football player yourself. Believe it or not, most people don't know. They know I played basketball. They don't know football is my first love. I love football. Okay. Passion. I much rather watch a football game than a basketball game. I find it much more interesting to watch the college football, the NFL, than to watch the NBA, except perhaps during the playoffs. But so I was so totally into sports. I did just enough in the classroom to stay eligible to play sports. But I'll tell you what saved me. I love to read. I have a passion for reading. And when my son, I remember when my oldest son went to school for the first time, I said, hey, they're going to teach you how to read. If you can read and you can comprehend, then you can do anything. The whole world will be open to you, because things that I should have learned in school that I wasn't necessarily paying as much attention to, I learned through reading. And still to this day, I can easily read and comprehend, comprehensive things that help me to have better understanding of the world around me. So those two things were passions. Basketball, I say sports helped me because, as you know, sports teaches you about life. All right. It gets tough in sports sometimes. There are a lot of ups and there are a lot of downs. You can't get too high. You can't get too low. You could be celebrated today and tomorrow you're a goat, and not a goat in a good sense as they use today. And so you have to learn to be resilient. You have to learn to have confidence in yourself. You have to learn to work within a team concept and understand that it's not just about you. And all those things help you as you go in the world. And then when you go out here in the world and you bump your head, stump your toe, and you become a little discouraged, but you keep going on because you understand the grind, that you got to keep going. If you keep going, it's going to be something good at the end. So sports helped me, I think, a lot from that concept as far as working with life. And then reading is what really helps me, because there's a lot of education that's involved in what I do. There's a lot of continuing education. I'm licensed not only in life insurance, but I'm licensed in securities, mutual funds, stocks, things of that nature. And you have to have understanding to be able to do those things. You have to read quite a bit, and you have to comprehend what you're reading, and you have to be able to apply it in a real life situation.
Awesome. And I always like to engage when we're talking to professionals, because this will be the resource for students, right? And so two things that you said that really stuck out, just popped out of the page when you talked about reading. And one of the things I often emphasize is that readers are leaders. Readers are leaders. Everyone wants to kind of get into that leadership role, but to think critically about what's going on, the environment around you before we move forward and initiate. And also you talked about there's a woman, she's a expert in what they call grit. Grit is really popular in schools these days. And it's when passion meets perseverance is essentially what grit is. And so that is developing sports, it's developing extracurricular activities. And so phenomenal example of those things. Okay, so this one is somewhat, I would say, difficult, but it's one of those questions was about the economy of work. How would you explain what you do as a professional in a sentence? How would you explain what you do as a professional in one word?
Okay, so that's like an elevator pitch. Yeah, you got 30 seconds. Give me a spiel. And I tell people all the time, I'm not the insurance man, all right? What I tell people is I build relationships. And then you get this look. It's like, well, what does that mean? I help people manage their everyday risk. That's what I do. Yeah. So one word, relationships. Relationships. Yeah.
What do you love the most about your job?
Actually, what I love is meeting and interacting with people, helping people, and leading people, leading other people in this business, helping them to understand this business and open up kind of the world of insurance to them, because it's especially in most of the world, but especially in the African-American community, we've not been exposed to insurance. But insurance really affects pretty much everything in your everyday life. If you think about it, almost everything you deal with is insured. You know, we can actually insure pets. Yeah, we sell pet insurance, we sell business insurance, we sell home insurance, auto insurance, you name it. The insurance for companies that make shirts like what you're wearing today, we insure them, you know, so we're behind. Insurance touches everything. As a matter of fact, most banks are owned by insurance companies. People don't realize that. Yeah, insurance companies either own them or they've invested heavily into them. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's the whole purpose of the name of the podcast. Is called the Imagine Exposure Vodcast, and that's what it's all about, giving kids exposure to be able to see what is available. What would you say is the biggest challenge in your work?
Biggest challenge in my work? Yeah, that's easy. All right, that's my pet peeve. So my biggest challenge is helping African Americans to understand the need for life insurance. All right. So I found that a challenge. I run into attitudes such as I talk to a lot of guys, men, and here's the attitude I get. I'm not going to leave all that money to my wife so she can marry another guy. All right. So I would get that all the time. So after a while, you start thinking through this stuff. Okay, so how am I going to overcome that objection? And so I would explain, I said, well, how would I think about life insurance? So I started sharing that with people. I said, listen, here's the way I look at it. All right, I want to leave my wife in a position that she doesn't have to marry the first joker that comes along that can help her pay the bills. All right, and I don't want just anybody raising my children. All right. So I'm going to put her in a position where she can take her time. And then I tell stories because I literally, one of my first customers ever, this is crazy. I went to the house in Sherman. The wife invited us over. We went that night, my manager and I was a brand new agent, rang the doorbell, and we got cursed out by the husband. So I left with my tail between my legs and went back to the office and said, well, maybe perhaps the wife didn't explain it to this guy. I'll call back. And but I lost my courage because he shook me so badly. It's the first time experience. I said, I kept saying, I'm going to call, but I never called. This is a true story. 2 weeks later, I pick up the newspaper. I read the newspaper. This guy had a massive heart attack and he died and left his wife and children with a beautiful home and no means to take care of it. That stuck with me. That made me realize, helped me to understand what you sell is valuable. What you're offering people is valuable. Life insurance allows people to maintain their dignity, to not depend on the government and social organizations. And it's the upholding, even to me, of biblical principles. All right, so when I married my wife, I made a commitment to her. They say to death do you part. I say even beyond that, until both of us die. I'm going to take care of her. If I'm not here, she's going to be taken care of, and I want to provide for my children as well. And if as a man, in explaining this is what I've tried to explain to so many men, especially African American men. It is my responsibility. If I provided a certain level of lifestyle for my family, it would be negligent of me to die and leave them in a situation where they cannot maintain that lifestyle. All right. So I looked at it and I did a presentation. I put together a presentation called African Americans and Life Insurance. And I prayed about it. I said, Lord, you know, I got a lot of presentations from the company I can put together, but you're a creative God. And you gave that same creativity to me, helped me to put together and organize a presentation that will touch the African American community. And within that presentation, I did some study, and the research told me at the time, over 78% of African Americans have zero life insurance. I was astonished. I said, how could that possibly be in this day and age? And so I began to study the history of us and life insurance. And then I understood why we're where we're at. It's the mentality that we have been given over time. So my job has been my toughest job is to re-educate our people on life insurance, the need, the value, and what it can do for you.
Very important work, very, very important work. And I mean, you know, I am the son of insurance professionals and advisors, as you have corrected me on that.
Absolutely.
And the reality is that it is something that we kind of put to the side, and we don't think about until sadly it's too late and somebody's putting up a GoFundMe or what have you. And the reality is, through some very intentional planning, we can be proactive, be more proactive. And there's, always historical reasons, always long-standing issues, but at the same time, how do we help the community move forward? And so,
how do we break that generational curse?
Absolutely. What steps must a person accomplish to either become certified or respected?
First steps I would say is, if you're interested in insurance, it depends. If a lot of colleges these days have insurance majors, which was astonishing to me. I never even heard of that when I was in college. USC, as a matter of fact, I know they have an insurance major there. So if you're in college, then I would say expose yourself to that, or as many mathematical math classes that you can be involved in. Of course, literature and reading and understanding, because you got to deal with people. I'm a person that believes in all the disciplines kind of touch each other. All right, so you need to be well-rounded, but specifically license, get a license in property and casualty and or life insurance, and then you can build upon that. You can go into securities, you can do broker's license. There's so many other avenues, but you want to get your professional license and even seek some professional designations like Life Underwriting Training Council, which your dad was a member of. And believe it or not, it gives you a lot of foundational information that helps you to help others.
How, and this question was actually birthed as I was kind of moving around in different places and different states, things like this. And it was a recurring theme, kind of as we talked about life insurance and being able to get the exposure and being able to understand that there are options, there are ways to change the narrative to a certain degree. One of the questions that continued to come up specifically in communities of color was a question of negotiation. And how that isn't always necessarily something that's a part of our culture or what we talk about, that sort of thing. But how does a person negotiate salary or the value of their services in this particular career choice?
And that's good. That's a good question, because, and I'll tell you a quick story about when I went into management. They told me what the salary was, and I said, okay, that's fine. Sounds pretty good. I can deal with that. Then I got there, and there was another gentleman, Caucasian gentleman. We both did the same thing. We sold our agencies and went into management. And he's having an animated conversation with the manager behind closed doors. And he comes back out and he says, I may not have a job tomorrow. I said, what do you mean? He says, well, I was negotiating my salary. I don't think they're paying me enough. I said, okay. Well, long story short, they acquiesced and gave him what he desired, an additional $12,000 per year. But you know what that did for me? It helped me, because I was there at the same time. They had to give me the same thing. And I told him, I said, listen, man, if I ever have to negotiate a salary, I'm hiring you, because he taught me something. You didn't just have to accept what they give you. Now, you have to, a negotiation is a negotiation. All right, so there's some give and take involved in that. So obviously you're going to ask for more than you expect, and hopefully land somewhere on the number that you actually expect. But when it comes to this profession, the actual sales profession, it's a little bit unique, because everyone says, I'm worth X number of dollars. Well, this is a prove me profession. You may be worth it, but let's see, because I'm going to give you a salary plus a commission, and the commission is open-ended. That's entirely up to you. How much do you want to grind? How much you want to put into it? How much passion do you have for what you do? How good are you really at what you're doing? And you will earn your worth. So I say, negotiate a decent salary and then negotiate more so larger commissions. All right, because that's where you can make money. I have worked in salary and I've worked in commissions, and I would never go back to a salary job in my life. I don't think I could do it again. I just don't know anything else, because once you understand the other side, you understand that you can control your income. You never want to relinquish that control. I was in management and I told them, I said, listen, you guys are capping me. You tell me that if I get this number, they gave you some bonus, but they said, once you hit this number, that's it. That's the highest you can go. So what if I hit that number in June? Where's my motivation for the rest of the year?
Rest of the year, yeah.
It's gone. Yeah. So know your worth, be willing to go and ask for what you want, even more so, more than what you want, but also understand that if you're going to be in a sales position, then you're going to have to earn a lot of what you get. And there's opportunity for you to prove yourself.
Based on what you know now about the vocation, what advice would you give yourself you can go on the first day of the job?
Okay, repeat that one more time. Make sure I understood that.
So for sure, let's say, and I call this the time machine question.
Okay.
Imagine if you could get into a time machine and talk to yourself on the first day of the job.
Yeah.
What advice would you give yourself based on the knowledge you know now?
Okay, that's good. That's good. Yeah. Okay. Well, the first thing I would do, and this is where most of us who go into business, especially African Americans, we go in undercapitalized. All right. Like I told you, I sold my car to go into business, and it was make or break. It was make or break. But really, if you want to have a successful business, you need to seek some capital. You need to plan probably in advance, save up some money, or seek out a small business loan to Small Business Administration, perhaps a bank that does small business loans, etc. I would write a solid business plan. These are all the things I learned by the seat of my pants, which I try to teach other people now. You got to have a solid business plan that you can take to a bank and you can present to a banker and actually get a loan from a banker based on that business plan, because they're looking for a reason to loan you money, but they have to understand and see that and if you have that capital, that gives you that cushion, because most businesses don't really turn a profit for a few years anyway. And not having that capital really puts you behind 8 ball. And that's where a lot of times, African Americans, we tend to start off behind 8 ball. Yeah.
Okay. Next question is, how do you prepare to one day transition from your role in terms of in-game retirement transition? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, that's a good question, Zach. I tell my son he's my retirement plan. That may not be the best retirement plan in the world, but no, seriously. When you own an agency, you have economic interest in it, and obviously, there's some value in that which you can either sell or transfer to someone else. My end game is over the next 5 years to transfer the business to my son, where I would take over. I would be an agent emeritus, that means I would stay involved, but I want to get to that point where I work because I want to, not because I have to. All right, but I also want to be there as an advisor and a guide. And at the same time, I am in seminary, been so for the last several years, and I finish next year. So my transition plan is to spend the rest of my life in some sort of ministry.
Praise the Lord. Congratulations. That's awesome.
Amen. Thank you.
Cultivate countdown. So these are a few steps. Of course, it doesn't fully encompass everything you do, but it's what we do is we put it on a meme and we try to stack up all the different vocations and professions. And we want young people to be able to look at these different principles, if you will, of how to do well in a specific skill or craft. And so if you had to give a few steps to do what you do, what would be those steps?
Okay, so I'm going to give 2 general steps that apply to, I believe, anything in life, any profession. 2 things: love God, love people. All right. Can't lose. Love God, love people. Those are the 2 greatest commandments. Beyond that, I would say always work with integrity Advise. This was something I was told by a gentleman years ago when I first started. You always advise or sell to your customer's need, not your own greed. Interesting concept. Sell to their need, not your greed, because you can go for all the money now, but you may not be in this business for the long run if you don't take care of people. So that's about taking care of people. Work on your business more so than in your business. And I don't mean that you're not in your business. I'm here every day. I'm providing leadership and guidance, but there are certain things that I can't do. I have to do the high level stuff and allow my staff to do the other things. Not that I'm above that, but I can't be effective if I'm in the midst of it all the time. Sometimes I have to be able to stand back and see it from 30,000 feet and see what's going on. But sometimes you're in the midst of it, you can't really see what's going on around you. So I said, work on your business, not in your business so much, and invest in people. Invest in people, invest time, training, let people know that love on your people, show them that you love them, that you care about them, that they're important, that they're meaningful to you, and that they're meaningful contributors. Allstate does a good job of showing agents that by giving you recognition. You've been on some of those trips over the years where the agents are recognized for what they do. I say agents miss that when we don't transfer that same recognition to our staff. So you have to make sure you show appreciation for your people because they work very hard, and it's not an easy business, and it's not for everyone. But most definitely, those are some of the steps I would say.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. And I hope and pray that will definitely encourage and give some good wisdom and guidance for whoever interacts with it. One motivational quote. If we had to put your quote on a meme under picture of you, and underneath you is the quote that you want that is specific to you, what would that quote be?
Okay, I'm stealing a little bit. Most of life is plagiarism, whether we announce it or not. But if you give credit, it's not plagiarism, right?
There you go. There you go.
So
there you go.
we're giving credit to Zig Ziglar and to Nike. Right? So I would say just do it. All right, and take care of people, and God will take care of you.
Oh, yeah. Love it. All right. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Session. Your time is very valuable, and I really appreciate it. We have covered everything. Any final thoughts, any places that people can find you or they can connect with your business? What are some final thoughts that you have for us?
Yeah, well, I mean, you can find me on, we're on Facebook, but we're also on the website. Just Google us at Allstate Ernest Session. You'll pull up our website. You can reach us. You can reach us at 803-778-1614. And, I'm here, and what I tell people all the time, I'm here. Obviously, I'm in business to make money. That would be dumb to be in business unless I was a nonprofit. I'm not a nonprofit, so I'm here to make money. But at the same time, I'm here to advise people, and my advice is free. I often get a lot of my clients, it's kind of humorous to me, especially my older clients, because I'm going to help them anyway. They'll say, well, how much do I owe you? Especially my older customers, the ones who can at least afford it. I said, you don't owe me a dime. I said, I'm here to advise people. That's what my blessing is. So, from that standpoint, I would just say final thoughts, I tell everybody the same thing I just said a few minutes ago. Love God, love people. This journey is just a practice. It's just a rehearsal. It's just a rehearsal. I feel like I live like I don't cling to this world because this world is not my home. I have an eternal home in heaven. But in the meantime, I have a kingdom mindset here on the earth. And I'm here for a reason and a purpose. And that's to serve the ultimate king, which is God, Jesus Christ, and to help as many people know him as possible.
Okay. Well, I do appreciate everything, sir. And thank you so much. And thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate, hey, listen, man, I appreciate the opportunity, man. Glad to do it. Glad to do it anytime.
Absolutely. You have a great day. Yes, sir.
You too, man. Tell mom and dad I say hello.
I will do that. Absolutely.
All right. Later. Bye.